What's going on there, guys? Good afternoon. It's the Earth Master here on the live stream with an update video on this Thursday, August 4th, 2022 date. It's about 12:27 p.m. West Coast time. Latest quake shows a 1.0 little microquake out here in Southern California for the latest quake on the globe. Notice a lot of activity once again kicking off the coast here. Just south of Japan. Let's go ahead and check out the latest activity. From the map here of the USGS, definitely seeing quite a bit of movement kicking off here throughout the last couple days along the Izu Trench. It's going to be this area down here just south of the Japan Trench. But if you look at the typical movement here, we're looking at a major subduction zone from about here all the way down. So these areas can see quite a bit of large earthquakes. Of course, we had that 9-pointer kick off in 2011 up here a little bit further north into the Japan Trench. But this activity we're seeing today and over the last week or so, let's pull up the last 7 days of activity here along the trench. It definitely got me eyeballing this area pretty closely. We've seen 35 earthquakes of magnitude 4.0 and greater. The largest one so far, I believe, is the 5.7 that struck last night here within the same region. And a lot of times we've seen this activity before, prior to the megaquake in 2011 in the Japan Trench. Seen quite a bit of swarming going on similar to this, although we were starting to get into the sixes, into the 6 magnitude, and I think lower 7 magnitude range as well. But we cannot just throw this under the carpet and kind of turn a blind eye to it. Whenever we see this type of swarming here in a major trench region, we gotta focus on this and possibly be prepared for something much larger coming very soon, if not in the hours or in the days ahead. As you can see, quite a few 5s, 5.7 so far, the largest. Quite a few 4s, 3s, and I'm sure there's many 2s and whatnot involved in here as well. There's no main quake yet. That's what's got me a little bit worried. So I pulled up the USGS catalog. Now this is the Izu Trench here. And just this specific area, I kind of drew a little outline here just along this trench to look at past historical earthquake activity and kind of where we're seeing this movement today in relation to, well, past historical earthquakes, right? We're looking at an area that has not seen anything above the 7.0 threshold, at least far as the records go back here. I went back to 1800. Not saying that the USGS keeps those records, but just to make sure. And we have not seen anything within this area. Here's a seamount right here. Let me pull this up. It's right about in this region right here is where we're seeing that current swarm. Yes, in historical times, looks like the last earthquake activity within this region, specifically along the trench, was back in 1916, 7.0. And there's some other earthquake activity as well within this region, but north of the swarm activity we're seeing, and this activity struck back in the 50s and the early 70s, it looks like. So it's been a long time and non-existent here along this area of the trench for anything above 7.0. This is a pretty good subduction zone, very capable, I'm sure, of producing a large quake, much larger than what we were seeing on the swarm. Looks like there was a 7.9 a little bit further north back in 1953. So it's kind of working its way down a little bit right about here around the seamount area. I know we got volcano islands and whatnot out here, but I don't think this is volcanic related. There's too much activity kicking up in a swarm fashion to call this volcanic. But see this little seamount area? You never know, though. We still have to keep an eye on it. Either a large quake is coming, or there's something definitely brewing underneath the ground. But these are about 10 kilometers. We're not seeing any deep earthquakes within this region. It's all roughly about 10. Got one there, kind of outside the swarm area a little bit at 11 kilometers. So again, look at it. It's occurring right about here in this region, right prior to the area of the subduction zone itself, this plate boundary between the Pacific plate. You got the Pacific plate here to the east, large plate movement, and you got the Philippine plate here as a whole this area right here, and this is going to be the plate boundary that this earthquake activity is kicking up on right here on this line. And this is again a subduction zone and a major accumulated stress region. So no 7-pointer in the history books here in this area that we're looking at. And the activity that has been here is old, 1916 and last 1972, and that's not even specifically around the swarming area. So just a heads up, as I think we are watching for something larger in terms of possibly a mega quake in this area off the coast of Japan or the Izu Trench region. So just a heads up, folks. I want to get that clear. We don't see stuff like this just pop up out of the blue and then disappear. It's definitely leading to something, I believe, firmly within that region. All right, moving on up north a little bit. We are starting to notice a little bit of activity along the Japan Trench, the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench up here to the north as well, about 10 kilometers for 4.6, and a somewhat deep one, 4.2, a little bit further down dip into the subduction zone. Off the coast of Japan here into the Japan Trench, we got a 5.4 at 44 kilometers deep. We haven't seen a whole lot of activity up here along the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, have we? As far as large-scale movement goes. I know earlier this year, and I think, I don't know about last year, but earlier this year we had a little swarm of some 5s and 6s up here. I can't remember the magnitudes exactly, but these areas up here to the north and south of the Japan Trench here, I think are trying to play catch up, and it might take a big quake to finally catch up a little bit here. We'll watch it pretty closely. Alaska region showing some movement throughout the Cook Inlet up into the Denali area. A little bit of microquake activity around Anchorage. Then again, the 2.5 map only showing 3.1 here on the area around the Cook Inlet region. Other than that, all microquakes throughout that region of Alaska. Up into the Washington region, had a little shaker outside of the Black Diamond area. 21 kilometers deep here. Looks like it's just off of the, I'm not for sure which fault system that's on. It is pretty deep for this area underneath the mountain regions. Looks like well east of Tacoma. Black Diamond, not for sure what's out there. But these little odd earthquakes striking kind of scratch your head a little bit. What's going on out there? But it is pretty deep. As far as the tremor map along the Cascadia subduction zone, sometimes these deeper tremors can apply a little bit of stress into the mountain ranges. Got to remember, got the North American plate here. Well, it's kind of being pushed up over here, but you also got the Juan de Fuca plate shoving down underneath here, down dip, creating the Cascadia subduction zone. And ultimately, I think it does add some crustal stress up here in this area. We see it a lot in Northern California, not all the time, but we do see the relation between the two. When we have a large amount of tremor activity, we tend to notice a lot of strain within the region of the tremor that's happening down dip and producing some earthquakes. And a lot of times that can be areas to the east or the west. So tremor activity last night, not that big of a deal. 69 epicenters of tremor. All right, moving on. Little activity throughout the Mount St. Helens region. One quarry blast, it looks like, or explosion. Not for sure what's going on up there in Oregon, but looks like somebody having fun out there in the Red Hills. Created a little 2.0 register on the seismograph. One earthquake outside of the Gorda Ridges. This one was kicking up last night. Far as new earthquake activity goes here along Northern California, there's not a whole lot of new ones. Looks like one earthquake this morning, a 2.4 into the Petrolia area. Again, this is deep though, 21 kilometers deep, and it sits right smack dab here, just at the very southern end of the Cascadia megathrust area. Some movement outside of Redding, and a little bit of activity throughout Northern California. Of course, the Cobb Mountain region here in the Clear Lake Volcanic Field. Calpine hydrothermal operations. Check it out. Don't believe me? Go out there and, well, I took a trip out there. If you're out here in California, go check it out yourself. There's lots of these hydrothermal plants all over the place, and they inject raw sewage down below the heat the heat that's below the surface here, creating energy. It's a pretty interesting process, but also very disgusting at the same time. But hey, whatever works, right? Further south as we go, not a whole lot of movement along the creeping section of the San Andreas Fault. We are still seeing some activity just off this area, the Mojave section of the San Andreas Fault. Still seeing some swarming of earthquakes. If we look at the last 7 days in this area, we've had a little handful of earthquakes, including a 3.3. Looks to be the largest earthquake so far in the sequence of earthquakes here. Just off of the San Andreas Fault down here. Might want to keep an eye on that region, although sometimes, once we get further north, kind of comes into very typical movement, seeing 1s and 2s along the creeping section. But down here in the southern part, might want to watch that a little bit. Off the coast of Laguna Beach, way off the coast there. Looks like a 2.1 at about 7 kilometers or so. Just coming in within the last hour. Some also a little bit of activity as well outside of Victorville. Nothing major going on along this area of the San Andreas Fault. This is the one that has not had any sufficient rupture in about 322 years or so. This is the one where the 8.1 magnitude earthquake will someday strike. Just one of these days. Who knows when? I don't know. We don't really know specifically. But right now, no major swarms going on around this area. A little activity along the San Jacinto Fault Zone near Borrego Springs, but very typical here along that segment. Rest of the states, Texas kicked up a little bit this morning and overnight. Looks like some activity in the 2 and 3 range outside of Pecos, Texas. Out there in the desert. Some movement up in Oklahoma as well. Looks like a little swarm of activity outside of Chickasha region. Let's see what we got for the satellite view. I can only guess. Let's see. These are about 7 kilometers deep. Far as injection wells and whatnot go, I see some remnants of some old ones here. It's going to be these barren fields. Looks like some of them still holding some tanks. Kind of hard to see on this satellite map here, but it's definitely within that area of some oil fields. Yeah, definitely down here in the south part too. Seeing these little squares mix in, little dirt roads leading to this one looks decommissioned. So even though they're all decommissioned, there's still the damage done underneath the land across the state of Oklahoma. So those will continue for many years to come. Nothing going on across the eastern portion of the country. We had one earthquake off the coast of Nicaragua. That was last night, a 5.3 into the Middle America Trench, pretty deep, at 137 kilometers deep here. We have not seen any further movement to take note in that area, though. Along the Puerto Rico area, still seeing a little swarm of activity overnight around the Puerto Rico Trench in a little linear fashion here. A couple 3s kicking off here, some variable depths, but nothing major going on across this Puerto Rico Trench area for now. South America, nothing showing up on the 4.0 threshold, but I'm sure there's 2s and 3s, maybe even a 4 that the USGS forgot to mention on the EMSC model, which we'll double check right now just to see what we got for any type of activity there in the South America region. And this is the EMSC model. Looks like 4.5 earlier. Actually pretty recent here, it looks like. USGS has not got to it yet, but hey, they will, right? It's not the weekend. It's not a holiday. Some 2s and 3s in the mix there along the Peru-Chile Trench. A major plate boundary here between the Nazca and the South American region, folks. That's very typical to see all these 2s and 3s in any trench region or any type of plate boundary. All right, let's go back here to the USGS map and see what we got outside of that region there of Japan. Some activity, it looks like, in the Fiji Islands region earlier this morning. Couple earthquakes here. Looks like one deep earthquake, subsequently followed up by a shallower earthquake up here, a little 4.9. Got to remember, these deep earthquakes do apply strain up here along the subduction zone itself, a little bit further upstream, and we see that a lot. Deep earthquake movements, subsequently followed up by a much larger, shallower earthquake activity In this case, not a big one, not a big movement earthquake, but sometimes they can get pretty big in those type of sequences there. So 5.0 in the Sumatra region, looks like northern end of the Java Trench. 5.0 at, we've got 5.0 at 18 kilometers. Aside from that, looking west here, one earthquake off the coast of Morocco last night. Atlantic Ocean pretty quiet. Still things up there in the Iceland region, kind of rocking and rolling a little bit. Looks like right now the main threat right now is just some gases. I know we got the fountains of fire and lava kind of kicking off, but the gases up there right now is kind of an issue as far as pollution goes. A lot of people want to go up there and check out the site, check out the beautiful fissure that's opened up and spewing out some lava. Looks like a new network for near real-time gas measuring will be set up tomorrow from the Iceland Meteorological Office. So we'll see how that goes. But still pretty cool, right? I mean, it's still pretty neat to see these fissures open up and blast off these little curtains of fire. And I'm sure there's lots of live streams up and running trying to cover that. I would love to go up there one of these days and see what that is like in person. But for now, we'll sit back here behind the mic and do our thing. Hawaii kind of tapering off a little bit here with the earthquakes along Mauna Loa region. This area did see quite a bit of earthquakes and bring up these past 7 days of movement here. Look at this trail of activity. And sometimes stuff like this can be concerning, and I'm really surprised the USGS has not put out a notification yet on this earthquake activity from the HANS network. Maybe they'll cover it though in the weekly update of this volcano, but they had about 124 earthquakes in this area. And look at that linear fashion stretched out at about 60 miles. That would not be good. About 6 miles or so across the summit area of Mauna Loa. All of this very shallow earthquake movement. Largest one, I believe, let's see what we got, 2.9, couple 2.9s in there. Nothing major going on yet, but that's a heck of a swarm. 124 earthquakes. Again, the hazard notification system from the HVO, Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, shows no update yet on the Mauna Loa. In fact, the last one was from the 28th. They talk about Mauna Loa volcano is not erupting. Rates of seismicity remain slightly elevated. Again, this update was put out prior to all this swarming activity that we've noted here over the last couple days. Around the Pahala region, typical movement out here on the southeastern flank. No unusual movement around the volcanoes aside from that, the swarm up there. Let's see what else we got. That's about it for earthquake activity across the map. US or the Yellowstone map does not show a whole lot of activity, folks. Things pretty calm. Not a whole lot of earthquake activity whatsoever. I believe these are some distant quakes kicking up from, I believe that's from the Japan earthquakes there. Let me see, from last night, if I remember correctly. Those do not look like localized earthquakes, and in fact I don't even see any localized seismic activity here across the board in Yellowstone. Things look pretty calm and clear is the key word for right now. Solar weather activity ramping up a little bit. See if they've updated. Nope, they haven't. This one's still old from a couple days ago. I do utilize this site a lot, but sometimes they're slacking on their updated info. A lot of this imagery here should look a lot different. I believe this one here is a more recent imagery here. No, that one looks a little old too. Look at that. These guys getting a little old, but we can go to any of these sites here and check out real-time imagery. They're just a little bit off as far as the Solar Ham site goes. Let's see what we got here for activity. The X-ray, okay, hold on a second here. The X-ray flux environment, that's the solar flare activity, which, by the way, we haven't seen any more upper sea flares since about a day or so ago, kind of mellowing out a little bit, although I think we should be on guard for some further activity. I'm not going to go into all this right now. Let's see what we got for a couple images here. The sun right now, this sunspot right here is 30. Wow, is a number on it. I can't remember. But we'll get back to that here in a second. Coronal hole activity is facing us. That's going to be these dark regions on the sun. A couple of them, but this one here is going to be directly facing Earth. You can see those in some of these images as well. A couple sunspots listed here. Some around the bend. Going to be the brighter images. It's pretty cool to check out all these different dynamic, colorful images here. Different wavelengths of the sun. I'm going to go back over here to the Solar Ham site. Maybe these guys are busy on their end, I'm guessing. They did put out an update last night, it looks like, though, yesterday. Sunspot activity looks to be, let's see when this was put out. Doesn't say, oh, updated August 4th, okay. 3068 is the name of the sunspot. That's kind of dying, kind of fading away. This one's here, 3070, should be named 3070, but I don't see it numbered up there, so they're a little off. A couple other sites we can check, spaceweather.com, many different areas. It looks like erupting prominence, a dramatic solar prominence, which astronomers have been monitoring for days, may be erupting right now. If you have a solar telescope pointing at the sun's eastern limb to witness the liftoff, it looks like that was earlier. But only do that if you have a solar telescope or solar camera designed for that. You don't want to be pointing any type of camera directly at the sun. I learned that the hard way earlier in my life. It burns a hole into the chip itself, the processing chip. Not good. Leaves a mark on all your photos from there on out. Hey, what's this big black spot on all of my pictures? Well, it kind of looks like the sun. All right, coronal hole activity. Here's this one's kind of old too, it looks like. I don't know what's going on with these images. Maybe it's a direct network issue from the NASA area or the SDO page. But 3068, this one's kind of old too, so maybe it's everywhere. We'll check back on this a little bit later tonight and see if we can't get any updated images here for the space weather updates. Canada, there you are. Not a whole lot of new activity for earthquakes. Looks like one earthquake away up here from last night, 2.1, the Quebec region. Aside from that, things just kind of mellow and calm there across the board with our neighbors to the north. So just a heads up, folks, stay alert, stay earthquake aware out there with that swarm going on off the coast of the Izu Trench, off the coast of Japan. It's kind of a big deal, and we'll watch it pretty closely. If anything does happen, we'll provide further updates out there. And of course, I do have a Japan station right here that's monitoring the activity. I don't know what happened to all these other ones. I lost the Yellowstone, I lost the BC station, I lost the Petrolia station. I'll give these a little bit more time to maybe pop up throughout the afternoon. What do we got here? 2.4 coming in right now to the California region. Let me see exactly where that's at, since it is popping up there on the globe. 2.4. The geysers, okay, up here in northern Cal, just outside the geysers area, off the Macama Fault. Again, Calpine hydrothermal operations over here. This one kind of striking pretty shallow in this area. All right, guys, have a good day. We'll chat you a little bit later tonight with the update, unless something major happens. Have a good day. Peace out.